Opening catchphrase. I'm Greg Alba.
And I'm John.
So we watched the movie a few days ago, and with E3 going on, we didn't have time to review it, get our minds focused on it, and not that as many people will watch our reviews as our reactions, but we're gonna talk about it anyway. Incredibles 2, people. The Parr family is back. Brad Bird writing and directing this film. This movie is something that I was highly anticipating. Incredibles 1 is arguably my favorite Pixar movie, actually. I gotta tell you, right off the bat, you can click off the review right now, forget watch time on YouTube. It is one of just the best sequels I've ever seen. And if you want to talk about the category of what a sequel is, this is one of the best sequels I've ever seen.
I might have enjoyed this a little more than the first one, because the first one is a movie that I've seen a couple times. I really appreciate, and for some reason I don't carry that like intense love. It's not at the top of my Pixar list, but at the same time I have mad respect for that movie, and coming out of that, this one really dazzled me, and I think in fact it made me kind of appreciate the first one that much more. So this is a slam dunk for me.
I want to get this out of the way right now. The big question with any sequel when people ask is like, which one did you prefer? I don't think it's necessary to try to do that for this specific one. I think there's such good companion pieces. You watch part one, you're going to want to watch part two, and it's just as satisfying as the first one.
And it feeds right into part two.
Yeah, it picks up wherever the last one left off, literally. There are elements of the first one that I really do prefer. When I was thinking about it, I was thinking to myself, the thoughts that were coming to the thinking.
What were you thinking, Greg? What were you thinking?
The elements that I preferred in the first one only work because of the fact that it is a first one and that it is an introduction. This is a continuation, and it does explore different elements. I don't know how other people are phrasing it. I haven't heard any other reviews yet, but I think the first one is more of like a commentary on superhero films, and I think this one is just a really good superhero film. Yeah,
and I mean, it serves to still deconstruct certain elements of it, for sure. I don't think there would be an Incredibles movie that doesn't kind of respond to the current state of superheroes, at least a little bit.
She's an advocate for superheroes.
You got two plots going on. The action-driven plot deals with Elastigirl. There's these characters, brother and sister, Evelyn and Winston Dever, played by Catherine Keener and Bob Odenkirk, who you kids might know from Better Call Saul. All those kids love that Breaking Bad spinoff, don't they?
Huge ratings on Nick Jr.
There are these billionaires who basically want to help superheroes become legit.
They're lobbying for the legality of superheroes once more, and to do that, they want Elastigirl to basically go out there and be their poster girl for this whole
superhero movement. The other storyline is because Elastigirl's doing that, Mr. Incredible has to take the back seat and be the stay-at-home dad and take care of the kids. And going back and forth between these two stories, the Elastigirl storyline I thought was great. What's cool about this one is the first one was Mr. Incredible's story, and this one is really Elastigirl's journey. This is her like crazy action adventure, and there's some brilliant action moments with her. They tease some of it in the trailer with this motorcycle sequence, this chase moment. Watching Brad Bird's direction on this reminded me of so much why I love the action scenes of the first one. Is he really does think about, okay, this is an animated movie. What can we pull off here that would only work in an animated film? And he does that just with the chase sequence. I was mesmerized.
There have been people complaining about that part of the storyline, saying like, oh, you know, feminism is destroying this movie. But really, it makes a lot of sense why you focus on Elastigirl for the action portions of this movie. They even go so far as to say, of all the superheroes we've got right now, you're kind of the one who causes the least amount of damage.
Yeah.
You know, there's the least amount of argument against you, and so they pull her into this. And the movie never gets overly preachy with that stuff. Like, it barely even stops to give you a direct message about it.
It's not really about it,
Yeah, it's just Elastigirl kicking and doing her thing, you know, kicking buns and doing her thing.
Kids? Stay off that Better Call Saul. And then with Bob's storyline, he's taking care of the kids. A big part of that is he's discovering that Jack has some, and they tease it at the end of the first one, he has some superpowers. Don't want to give anything away here. Easily, Jack is the scene stealer of this movie.
Jack is so much fun.
Biggest laughs, biggest claps throughout this entire film. And the most memorable sequences, when I think of Incredibles 2, I think of Jack's moment specifically. I really don't want to give anything away. It was was just such a nice surprise. And I think a big part of why Bob's storyline works so well here is because it not only amplifies the emotional human side of Bob, it amplifies the emotional human side of the kid. Violet is a character who I kind of don't really care for in the first one. In this movie, I really cared a lot about her in this movie. More than just she gets some cooler scenes, she gets some more like teenager stuff to do. Yeah. And the bonding relationship between Dash and Mr. Incredible is another big part of this movie. Dash having to do his homework and the dad having to teach Dash how to do that.
Having to relearn math and stuff like that and get good at being an actual dad in the process.
Help Violet out with her love life. And what I found fascinating about this movie was I thought the stuff with Mr. Incredible being a stay-at-home dad might be the dull part of the movie or the not as interesting part. In some ways, I preferred that more.
Yeah.
Because I hate women. And female propaganda is just the stupidest thing ever. A man taking care of his family is
That's
what I
real
gravitate towards.
But that is the thing, is like in an effortless kind of way, this movie reverses the roles in a way that never feels cloying or preachy or anything like that. And it's so much fun watching Mr. Incredible learn how to do dad stuff.
Yeah.
And be one step ahead of Dash's lessons and managing Jack and all that.
Well, you get like the action superhero stuff primarily from Elastigirl storyline, but then you get like the heart and the emotions from the Mr. Incredible storyline. And his storyline, it has some of the biggest laughs in it. I would say this movie is funnier than the first one. While I would say there are moments in the first one that can only be captured within a part one of a franchise like this, the family uniting and getting the chills from that and getting kind of teary-eyed from how like awesome that is. You're not going to get that in this movie because we've already got that all taken care of. I would still say this one is a lot more energetic and funnier than the first one.
Oh yeah, and it's perfectly updated to now. It's got all the proper sensibilities without feeling like it's lost its soul or anything like that.
And the animation is improved as well, but they don't like go too far improved to where you're like, what the hell is this? You know?
Just notice there's so many finer textures and things move a bit more fluidly. Like it's beautiful, but it's still that same Incredibles design.
Yeah, I would say that Violet and Elastigirl get a shine more in this movie. I think the only missing ingredient here, but they supplement it with something. The only missing ingredient here would be Dash having that moment in the movie that's just so cool. Because in the first Incredibles, that's one of my favorite moments when Dash discovers he can run on water. And then in this movie, he doesn't really get that super cool moment. Like you get some Dash stuff,
He gets a lot of punchlines for sure.
He's funny. There's no like action moment that really stands out for him. However, you get a lot of great Jack stuff, which you don't really get in the first one.
Exactly. They just shift the focus.
And that's what I'd also say about Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl. Elastigirl gets to shine more in the action parts than Mr. Incredible does, but you get a whole new layer to Mr. Incredible that was super rewarding.
The only thing I think I could have used a little bit more of was Lucius, was Frozone.
Really?
Just him being Lucius, like there's some cool action with Frozone.
You get more Frozone, but less Lucius.
Yeah, exactly. And I do always love it, like especially I think back to the first one, like the buddy dynamic between him and Bob in the first one is a lot of fun. So I did kind of miss that, but still, I mean, Sam Jackson's a lot of fun in this role still.
And there's a couple of new characters in here. There's one new character with superpowers that I don't recall seeing in the trailers, but Sophia Bush plays her, character named Void. She gets an action sequence that is one of the highlight action moments of the movie as well. That was another moment where I'm like, that's Brad Bird right there.
Like, is a line.
Like I've seen this power before in other movies, but this is how you do it here in an animated movie. The villain that sees in this movie too, Screenslaver, an interesting villain. I mean, it's not like the majority of the focus goes on the villain in this movie. That's the other thing too I would probably say about the first Incredibles I preferred is the villain of the first Incredibles. This would go into spoiler territory if I had to reveal why. I just found there was a more surprise and a personal twist behind the first Incredibles as opposed to what they do with Screenslaver here. But there's still some cool elements they touch on that you think this movie's gonna make some commentary on. It doesn't really go all out with its commentary there, but it's not about that. I don't want to give it away, you know, people might be able to predict twists and whatever from just watching this movie, but it's not even about the twist, you know? It's not about any of those things. So even if it's predictable, it's not about that.
Yeah, I kind of meet you halfway on that one. The first movie definitely has a more rewarding, more personal villain, although I will say I thought the Screenslaver was surprisingly intense and kind of scary to behold, and some of my favorite sequences in the movie involve the Screenslaver, so I do think it's a strong villain.
There's no doubt about that. I'm glad you said that, because I don't want that to miscommunicate that I don't like the Screenslaver.
And I do think that that is a distinct villain, especially moving on to a part two. It doesn't need to be the same.
I was kind of thinking, is this movie gonna get really really dark now?
yeah.
There's a hot minute there. Like, oh my gosh, this is gonna go down that path. I think the common thing that people will say with sequels that have this much anticipation, this much hype, stuff like it doesn't feel as fresh. I wouldn't even use that word because I still think it feels fresh.
It feels like it didn't skip a beat.
It feels like it was weird to watch a movie that hasn't had a sequel in like over a decade, and then to not feel like time has passed.
Right? And yet it's
And
so
it works.
updated to now at the same time. Like,
I think it's a perfect companion piece to part one. I think there are elements in part one that I prefer, but there's definitely elements here that I also prefer. It's funnier, it's more energetic. I would say they're equal. I know some people prefer the first, some people prefer the second. I would say they're both equal.
Hey man, this is definitely a Toy Story 2, not a Cars 2.
Cars 2 is pretty equivalent to Cars 3.
How dare you besmirch the good name of Cars 3 being marginally okayer than Cars 2.
Incredibles 2 gets whatever high rating that other critics give movies.
I give it 100 Stuckmans.
150,000 Ellises.
I give it 1 million subscriptions to the Tyrone Magnus channel.
I am late to the party.
It's reaction tea time.
Well, guys, why don't you comment below and tell us if you are upset that we did not say that this is the best Fantastic Four movie ever made. Reason why we didn't? It's not a Fantastic Four movie.
Not.
Alright, well, you guys can subscribe to the Reject Nation. Click that notification bell because subscribe buttons do not work these days. You can check us out on Patreon. We got full-length TV show reactions, weekly Q&As, music video coverage. Would love to have you become a Patroneject today.